What? He asked, curious again. My mom always says I was born 35 years old and that I get more middle aged every year. I laughed and then sighed. Well, someone has to be the adult. I paused for a second. You don't seem like much like a junior in high school yourself, I noted. He made a face and changed the subject. So why did your mother marry Phil? I was surprised to remember the name. I mentioned it just once, almost 2 months ago. It took me a moment to answer. My mother, she's very young for her age. I think Phil makes her feel even younger. And either way, she's crazy about him. I shook my head. The attraction was a mystery to me. Do you approve? He asked. Does it matter? I countered. I want her to be happy, and he is who she wants. That's very generous. I wonder, he mused. What? Will she extend the same courtesy to you, do you think, no matter who your choice was? He was suddenly intent, his eyes searching mine. I think so, I stuttered. But she's the parent after all. It's a little bit different. No one too scary then, he teased. I grinned in response. What do you mean by scary? Multiple facial piercings and extensive tattoos? That's one definition, I suppose. What's your definition? But he ignored my question and asked me another one. Do you think that I could be scary? He raised his eyebrow, and a slight trace of a smile lightened his face. I thought for a moment and wondered if a truth or a lie would go over better. I decided to go with the truth. I think you could be if you wanted to. Are you frightened of me now? His smile vanished. His heavenly face was certainly serious. No, but I answered too quickly. The smile returned. So, are you gonna tell me about your family? I asked to distract him. It's got to be a much more interesting story than mine. He was instantly cautious. What do you want to know? The Cullens adopted you? I verified. Yes. I hesitated for a moment. What happened to your parents? They died many years ago. His tone was matter of fact. I'm sorry, I mumbled. I don't really remember them that clearly. Carlisle and Essay have been my parents for a long time now. And you love them? It wasn't a question. It was obvious in the way he spoke of them. Yes, he smiled. I couldn't imagine two better people. You're very lucky. I know I am. And your brother and sister? He glanced at the clock on the dashboard. My brother and sister, and Jasper and Rosalie for that matter, are going to be quite upset if they have to stand in the rain waiting for me. Oh, sorry. I guess you have to go. I didn't want to get out the car. And you probably want your truck back before Chief Swan gets home, so that you don't have to tell him about the biology incident. He grinned at me. I'm sure he's already heard. There are no secrets in Forks. I sighed. He laughed, and there was an edge to his laughter. Have fun at the beach. Good weather for sunbathing. He glanced down at the sheeting rain. Won't I see you tomorrow? No, Emily and I are starting the weekend early. What are you going to do? A friend can ask that, right? I hope the disappointment wasn't too apparent in my voice. We're going to be hiking in the Goat Rocks Wilderness, just south of Rainier. I remember Charlie had said to Collins went camping frequently. I tried to sound enthusiastic. I don't think I fooled him, though. A smile was playing around the edges of his lips. Will you do something for me this weekend? He turned to look me straight in the face, utilizing the full power of his golden brown eyes. Don't be offended, but you seem one of those people who just attract accidents like a magnet. So, try not to fall into the ocean or get run over or anything, alright? He smiled crookedly. The helplessness had faded as he spoke. I glared at him. I'll see what I can do. I snapped as I jumped out into the rain. I slammed the door behind me with excessive force. He was still smiling as he drove away. Chapter 6 Scary Stories. As I sat in my room trying to concentrate on the third act of Macbeth, I was really listening for my truck. I would have thought, even over the pounding rain, I could have heard the engines roar. When I went to peek out the curtain, again, it was suddenly there. I wasn't looking forward to Friday, and it more than lived up to my non expectations. Of course, there were the fainting comments. Jessica especially seemed to get a kick out of that story. Luckily, Mike had kept his mouth shut, and no one seemed to know about Edward's involvement. She did have a lot of questions about lunch, though. So, what did Edward Cullen want yesterday? Jessica asked intrigued. I don't know, I answered truthfully. He never really got to the point. You look kind of mad, she fished. Did I? I kept my expression blank. You know, I've never seen him sit with anyone but his family before. That was weird. Weird, I agreed. She seemed annoyed. She flipped her dark curl impatiently. I guess she hoped to hear something that would make a good story for her to pass on. The worst part about Friday was, even though I knew he wasn't going to be there, I still hoped. When I walked into the cafeteria with Jessica and Mike, I couldn't keep from looking at his table where Rosalie and Alice and Jasper sat talking, heads close together, and I couldn't stop the gloom that engulfed me as I realized I didn't know how long I'd have to wait before I saw him again. At my usual table, everyone was full of our plans for the next day. Mike was animated again, putting a great deal of trust in a local weatherman who promised sun tomorrow. I had to see that before I believed it. But it was warmer today, almost 60. Maybe the outing wouldn't be completely miserable. I intercepted a few unfriendly glances from Lauren at lunch, which I didn't understand until we were all walking out of the room together. I was right behind her, just a foot from her slick silver blonde hair, and she was evidently unaware of that. Don't know why Bella, she sniffed my name, doesn't just sit with the Cullens from now on, I heard her muttering to Mike. I never noticed what an unpleasant nasal voice she had, and I was surprised by the malice in it. I really didn't know her well at all, certainly not enough for her to dislike me, or so I thought. She's my friend. She sits with us, Mike whispered back loyally, but also a bit territorially. I paused to let Jessica and Angela pass me. I didn't want to hear any more. That night at dinner, Charlie seemed enthusiastic about my trip to La Push in the morning. I think he felt guilty for leaving me alone on the weekends, but he seemed too many years building his habits to break them now. Of course, he knew the names of all the kids going, and their parents and their great-grandparents too, probably. He seemed to approve. I wondered if he would approve with my plan to ride with Edward Cullen to Seattle. Not that I was going to tell him. Dad, do you know a place called Goat Rock or something like that? I think it's south of Mount Rainier, I asked casually. Yeah, why? I shrugged. Some kids were talking about camping there. It's not a very good place for camping, he sounded surprised. Too many bears. Most people go there during the hunting season. Oh, I murmured. Maybe I got the name wrong. I meant to sleep in, but an unusual brightness woke me. I opened my eyes to see a clear yellow light streaming through my window. I couldn't believe it. I hurried to the window to check, and sure enough, there was the sun.